So, I've got a video reply for Karma Frost Martinez-Gonzalez for the video they're talking about you. Alright, first thing I want to say, me and you, we had a little bit of a encounter, but I know that it was a fear response. Alright, so just so you know, when I read people, I don't read people who are unwilling. Alright? Now, the part of you that may have been willing may have been your curiosity. Alright? I apologize for catching you off guard and reading you the way that I did and writing it. I wrote it in the comments and you went off on me and you were like, get the fuck off my page. I respected that, you know? If anything, basically the way that I ended up taking that interaction was, all right, I'm going to get off her page. I'm going to stay off her page, all right? If I'm meant to ever go back on her page will go ahead and show back up on my algorithm. If it shows back up on my algorithm, then at that point it is safe to assume that the time has elapsed of desiring me to stay off the page and any messages given, the showing back up on my algorithm will be the invitation. So, you showed back up on my algorithm. Now, I hope you know I don't just read anybody. In order to be able to read somebody, they've got to be a good-natured person. Keep in mind, though, I also am able to detect ill-intentioned natured people. Ironically enough, there are people that completely ride that fence whether they like it or not. Ironically enough, Need This Message fell into that category. All right? And noticing, I'm saying fell, not falls into that category. Fell into that category. All right? Because you know how energy doesn't lie, people do? Well, there are certain patterns that didn't end up getting picked up. Like, for example, after I ended up reading Need This Message the same way that I read you, I made it clear, though, that I had good intentions, you know? If anything, it was just one of those factors of saying, like, listen, I understand the reason for the defensiveness. I can't blame you. I'm still working on the same trauma trigger. So, but I just want to let you know I come in peace. I'm not your enemy. If anything, I'd like you to know that I share a similar goal that as you do. You know, we just have different demographics that we tend to target or that ends up being receptive to us, you know? So ultimately, I'd prefer to view you as a colleague. And there was enough of an elapsed time where Need This Message would have released at least 2 videos by the time that she did end up going ahead and putting out videos again, you know, to reach my algorithm. And afterwards, keep in mind, one thing that was missing from her videos was the attempt to psych me out. And I know the reason for that was to say, you didn't get it wrong. I think the acknowledgement was appreciated just as much. Not to mention that, but the acknowledgement of her strength, because let's be real, she is a force to be reckoned with. I mean, hell, if there was anybody that got close to being able to get under my skin, she almost got there. She got to give her credit on that, you know? And I mean, this is coming from somebody who's gotten tossed from fucking foster home respite, group home, foster home respite, group home, psych ward, foster, like that, like nonstop, the entirety of my youth. So, obviously, you get to meet many different people, many different personalities, many different backgrounds, many different walks of life, many different people with different belief systems, many different people with world viewpoints and perspectives and lived experiences that end up being so drastically different while simultaneously having so many common denominators that wouldn't even be acknowledged or recognized if you were to put these individuals in the same room for a few hours. Like, it would take a while for them to realize that. So it kind of helped sharpen that self-preservation instinct. So I apologize for the way that I freaked you out when I ended up reading you and putting it in the comments. I had no ill intentions whatsoever. If anything, me going ahead and saying it was just stating the factor, like, hey, so I recognize the good intentions. I see the vulnerable points, which we actually share quite a few similar vulnerable points. And I just wanted to let you know that I appreciate what you're doing, especially because you're one of the few people who are actively acknowledging the middle ground, that gray area that people want to go ahead and automatically assume is riding the fence, while in reality, for some of us that are able to do things differently than other people, that gray area isn't riding the fence. It quite literally is attempting to maintain the natural balance of things. Because ultimately, an unequivocal power dynamic, when it comes down to the intentions of the individuals that desire power, end up being so drastically different. Like if and when they end up getting it. Like, ironically enough, it's the people that seem to be like they would be the good Samaritans and the saints that tend to be the easiest tainted. Ironically enough. And ironically enough, when it comes down to the bad guys, it seems like people that ended up getting put into really fucked up situations that ultimately, if you were to go ahead and say, hey, I'm not going to judge you for the things that you've had to do in survival scenarios and kill or be killed situations. If I were to go ahead and take those off the table, there's not much bad that I could really see about you. That ultimately, they need to hear it from somebody else more than they even realized. Simply for the factor that getting judged by those transgressions, a lot of the times they end up being some of their harshest critics. And they find themselves to be too far from redemption. It's funny how fucked up things work like that. But anyway, what I wanted to say is, I apologize I understand how intrusive that could have seemed or felt. I want you to know that I had no ill intentions when I did that. I could not help but do that, though, because ironically enough, I don't know whether it was conscious or subconscious, but there was a part of you that was drawing me to do that, simply for the fact that it was curiosity that you were trying to just push down. So I don't know if that was welcomed or not, or if ultimately your videos showing back up on my algorithm is a invitation to be a part of your collective again. But I just wanted to at least issue that apology, because I understand how vulnerable it can end up leaving somebody. Just some random internet person being able to read parts of somebody that literally some of the closest people to them wouldn't be able to. Trust me, I didn't ask to be able to do that. And when that happens, I don't know how to prevent that from happening. I don't want you to think that me doing that was malicious, or that was an attempt with an ulterior motive to try to in any which way sway the balance of power in my favor or anything like that. It was not at all. If anything, it was more like it felt like there was a part of you that curiosity wanted to go away. So it was kind of a test of, is it bullshit, or are they really able to do that? And I think you got your answer. I could also imagine, if you have the same response that most people do, that probably leaves you in some way, shape, or form feeling fearful or vulnerable. But just know, with everything that I'm capable of, I don't use it for self-gain. I don't use it for the tipping of the power dynamic into my favor. I don't use it for leverage. I literally just use it to be able to assess the threat level of anyone that I encounter. If you think about it, it's kind of more of a security system than a home defense system strapped with the shit ton of turrets and everything, you know? But I just wanted to make clarification on that, because I don't, if I'm able to avoid it, I would rather not be somewhere where I'm not welcome. You know, that whole, go where you're celebrated, not tolerated. Yeah. I'd rather have clarification that there's an invitation. And if there is an invitation, I'd also like to go ahead and extend that if there was ever anything that you were curious about that you'd like to reach out and pick my brain and be like, hey, I kind of want to know this, and this. I would rather get the curiosity out of the way, because usually once the curiosity goes away, the awkwardness goes away. And then once the awkwardness goes away, it tends to be a lot better of a time for everyone involved. You know what I mean? Like, it's not one of those like, oh, they're seeing me in a light that, ultimately I have to feel exposed, and feeling exposed makes me feel defensive. Rather just be like, hey, so yeah, that thing is a real thing, but you know, I'm more than just that thing that I'm able to do. I'm also a person with my own thoughts, desires, hopes, dreams, aspirations, worldviews. And I like to get to know other people's too. You know? I understand I could talk a lot, but I'm also really good at listening and paying attention to details. Actually, I surprise a lot of people with the amount of things that I end up remembering that they bring up of personal likes and dislikes of theirs and everything. It's because, if I'm going to invite somebody, even conversationally, to have more access to being able to converse than most, then I'd like it to at least be under informed consent rather than coerced consent, But just figured I'd go ahead and clarify that and lay it out there. Ultimately, if you end up going ahead and watching any videos of me going ahead and reading other people, there's a few other people that have put the signals out there like, hey, do me. I'm like, okay. And the funny thing is, there have been plenty of people in the past that have paid me to do this for them. So, but in this circumstance, it's like, hey, I offer it at least once for anyone who's a colleague of mine, professional courtesy. And just know too, even if we don't share 100% of the same worldview and the same thoughts and the same perspective, I actually enjoy getting to hear differing and opposing perspectives, as long as it's an actual nuanced conversation and not an attempt at pretty much trying to shove your personal beliefs down my throat and be like, you need to go ahead and live by my beliefs, and you need to, your beliefs need to be my beliefs, or else there is no room in my life or in any which way, shape, or form for you. Because my response to that one was always, okay, so then there's no room in your life or anything for me. I'm good. I know where the door is. But just laying that invitation out there. And ultimately, I gotta say, I have a feeling we probably share more in common than most people would end up thinking. But ironically enough, I know that you're actually a better person than people would end up going ahead and believing if they were to go ahead and judge you by looks. Actually, you seem like probably one of the most genuine people that anyone could get to know if they were willing to take the time to not judge a book by its cover. So that's why I'm even willing to be like, hey, I apologize if that caught you off guard, and that's what that was. I apologize if you felt like it made you feel vulnerable and made you get defensive. I apologize. In the future, if it's not welcome, not invited, completely understandable. In the future, if you were to not have that same feeling because of not feeling caught off guard, and you'd be like, hey, you do the thing, I want to see, I'd be welcome to. I'd be happy to. But ultimately, if I'm going ahead and going to your channel, obviously that's your space. You set the rules, and the last place we had left it was you had said that I was not welcome in your space, as far as your channel. And I gave it time and basically said, I'll leave it up to the algorithm, you coming back up on my algorithm, if I were to potentially be welcome to your space again. And yeah, you ended up showing up my algorithm again. So I figured I'd take the opportunity to give a response and, be like, listen, it really, really is my bad. And I want you to know too, when that happens, that doesn't happen until I'm able to get the sense on not only intentions, but who you are on the inside, you know? But also understand, I do know there's a part of you that is capable of being a little tricky should you choose to be. I mean, practical joker, potentially. I sensed a little bit of joy and cynical, you know, cynicism, basically. Dark sense of humor. And getting your giddies in some pretty twisted ways. Not sure if I was 100% accurate on that, but I'm saying there was a detection and a hint of that vibe. And if that's the case too, understand catching me off guard might be a little bit more difficult than most people would end up thinking, but just wanted to say if that's part of who you are, then that's part of who you are, you know? People have a difficult time being able to accept people good, bad, and indifferent, because a lot of the times, people have a hard time not pushing their own personal standards onto other people and actually meeting them where they're at. But anyway, I'm gonna end that message towards you. Hopefully you watch it. If not, I just wasted 22 minutes of my own time, but it's there if you end up choosing to watch it. And if you don't watch it and you end up hearing from somebody else, yeah, no, that happened. You got an apology. Whether or not you were looking for one is an entirely different conversation, but yeah, completely understandable. You were not in the wrong at all in the situation, and I apologize if that situation was interpreted as disrespect, because there was no disrespect intended whatsoever.